Well, here it is, the 2019 Ram 1500 Limited. It also has the Hemi V8. This one's actually the e-torque, so it's a mild hybrid. Weird to see a hybrid full-size truck. Anyway, you can tell this is a Limited because of the chrome trim that goes along the side. And the key says Ram Limited. Very special. You can tell from the key too, you can lower the vehicle. Double press that key button and the truck will lower. Gives you easy access into the cabin. Pretty cool. You can double click to remote start it, and you can double press for the tailgate to go down. I'm not going to waste your time with that. We'll just get in it and drive it to Dallas. Keyless entry, you open the door. The running boards deploy. You'll see here in the back seat, this is an ideal road trip vehicle. First of all, you'll notice there's no hard plastic on the back of these seats in the Limited. We also have filigree in here. Very nice leather. This leather is also piped. There's no contrast stitching in here, but these seats are very comfortable, especially in the back, because the standard feature in the Ram is if you slide the seat forward, you actually get the ability, I can't do it with one hand, but you get the ability to slide it forward and increase the rake or the incline on the seat, so you can actually lay down sort of in the back. And there's plenty of room to do that. Very nice interior. Up front, we have adjustable pedals, we have an electronic parking brake, we have fog lights, our bed light, and a huge center console. Let me just climb up in here. By the way, that's a very nice grip on this. I used this yesterday in the rain and did not slip on those rails at all. Okay, memory seats. And radar cruise. This is our gear selection, which, you won't have paddles in here because it's a truck, but we still have the ability to change the gear selection. And we have our instrument cluster here. The gauges are analog on the sides, but in the center it's digital, and I'll show you that. Obviously we have a huge center stack and an adjustable air suspension. Of course, these buttons aren't illuminated right now until I start the vehicle, so let me start it up. I have to pause the camera for a second. Okay, the engine's on, and as you can tell, we need to get some fuel, so we will go do that. And this truck has 6,600 miles on it. It's hard to tell with the glare there. There you go. So I do have a few things about this truck where they're kind of like complaints. The first one is this speedometer. You can see 80, 60, 40 quite clearly, but 70, 50, 30 are kind of just like jammed in there. So when you're way back here, this is pretty much where my head is, I can hardly make out the speed because of the font. The font has very thin horizontal lines, and someone like me with astigmatism can't necessarily make the difference out between 60 and 80 miles an hour. 20 and 40 are okay, but 60 and it just, from where I'm at, I can't even see. So luckily there's a speed display right here in the middle that's an option. And you can configure that corner, these corners, and the sidebars with whatever you want it to display. And you can even have it show the gear selection. So I have that active. I've configured this to my style, and it's very similar to what I can do in my Dodge Durango and the Chrysler 300S Hemi that I used to have. You'll see this. We have 4-wheel drive. I have it in 4 auto because it was raining, and 2-wheel drive obviously is for the dry weather, and a 4 low. So we do have a lock here with 4 high, and air suspension. So we can put that into off-road 1 or 2, but I can also put it into a mode called Aero, and then another mode called Normal. So when it's in normal mode, that's just basically auto leveling. And what will happen is you get on the freeway and it will lower down into aero mode, and that's part of the ability for the air suspension to increase fuel efficiency. So on the Ram 1500 without the air suspension, there's a dam in the front underneath the bumper that comes down to decrease drag and increase efficiency. When you do have air suspension, you don't get that dam. Instead, you get the whole truck that just lowers down on the freeway. So it's pretty cool. And there is no function here to auto set like in the Jeep Grand Cherokee, you can auto set an entry exit. I can't do that here. So we have our app manager and we have some settings, but even under the settings for the vehicle, I really have no, let's see, auto on comfort. See, that's just for the heated steering wheel and vents. So if you remote start, you can get your heated seat and heated steering wheel going. If it's under 40 degrees, it'll automatically kick in. If it's over 80, the vented seats will kick in for the driver. I'm not sure about the passenger, but the passenger does have heated and vented seats as well. In the rear, you have heated seats, and they're not a part of the auto remote start system. And this here is pretty funny. I call this, drinking and driving is not a good idea, but if you're hunting or camping, and you have those little airline bottles of liquor, that is your minibar. It's actually lit, so at night, there's a lighting inside there, and it's flocked. It's got a felt lining, just like here, with this. And it's a pretty nice secondary glove box. The main glove box is down there. This is another thing too. We have cup holders built into the center console that slides around. So you've probably seen that in other truck videos. We have our wireless charging, which means you can stick your phone right in here, and the screen is visible. So when you're driving along, you can actually see what's going on with your phone, rather than it being in a cubby or laying down or inside a center armrest, which some cars have with the remote. With the wireless charging. This truck does have a few options, so we'll go over that. Granite crystal paint, it's only $200. The bumpers are painted. Advanced safety group, so that's the cruise control and the lane keeping, and then it has this button here to park itself, which is cool. Lane keeping right there, which is cool. And what else am I looking at? We have this optional Toto cover on the rear bed, which I don't think it plays anything into efficiency, but it helps obviously secure. I'd rather have the Ram box, which is a box that goes over the corner or the edge of the bed, so you could flip it up and make it an ice chest, or put your groceries in there without having to get into the back of the truck. What else do we have if my camera will focus? We have the axle ratio of 3.92. We have the Hemi with the e-torque, which is the hybrid version. And I'd have to say the hybrid hasn't really done much for me in terms of fuel efficiency. I'll get to that in a second. We have the panoramic roof, which is awesome. The deployable bed step, which is built into the bumper. 33-gallon tank, which is definitely something you should consider. And these polished wheels. And of course the trailer brake control, which is right there. We have a tow haul mode. We have parking sensors that will disable automatically when you hook a trailer up, so the rear parking sensor turns off. And when you hook a trailer up, you can actually configure this system so that it knows. Oh, let me open the mirrors there. There you go. You can actually set the the trailer. It'll actually automatically know the distance of the trailer for your blind spot monitoring. So if you have a 40-foot trailer like I had on here, it will automatically account for the distance of the trailer in your blind spot, which is really cool. So the total price of this truck as it is pretty much $70,000. And you can see there the warranty, 5 years, 60,000 mile. On the powertrain, 336 basic warranty. And this is a press vehicle. You can see here it's sold to Chrysler, which is funny. And here's the fuel economy. Now, there is another version of this if that fuel economy doesn't do it for you. There's a diesel version, and I drove that when it was launched, and hopefully I'll get one pretty soon to do a full road trip in. But there's another Easter egg. You've seen this before in other videos. If you haven't, go watch all my other videos. I've done a lot of videos on the Ram. This is my first time actually driving one in my own custody, which is really weird. I've got the diesel one I've driven, and suspension, sound horn, blah blah blah, aero mode. So there is no mode here for automatic lowering of the suspension when you park the vehicle. So that's that's not what you would expect if you've got the Jeep Grand Cherokee. So you have to manually lower the vehicle if you wanted the ease in or ease out, which I guess is why it's on the key. Anyway, we don't have the locking rear diff, which I would recommend because that's a lot of fun in the mud, and you get more control in the mud with a locking rear diff. So consider that. And overall, this is the Limited, so it's top of the line, with the exception of the Laramie Longhorn. So the Laramie Longhorn is basically like the country version. It's a country theme. This is the Limited, so it's more like a city slicker theme. And you can see the sunroof here is really nice and big. And of course, I'm a sucker for overhead switches, and we have plenty of that. We got the beer door. We got the shade here, which I'll close. The tilting of the vent for the sunroof glass. And of course, a fully open sunroof glass, which it rained and it's wet, so I'm not going to show that to you. But it is a solid shade from the sense of it blocks out light, so it's not a see-through shade. And it offers plenty of convenience here in this truck. We're not short on convenience. People hate this. I happen to like this gear selector knob. Sometimes I find myself reaching for the volume knob by accident, but that's okay. Oops, we'll go into reverse. When you go into reverse, the parking brake automatically releases. That's what I like about an electronic parking brake, is that it sets and it unsets, and you're basically on your own as far as not having to worry or fiddle around with a brake. And we will just head to the gas station. I'm going to keep this running. This is going to be a long video, but hopefully I'll be able to give you the experience. I'm all about the experience. I'm not here to give you stats or bore you with information. I'm here to let you know what it's like to have one. I really like the Ram. Obviously, it's an award-winning truck. And I am one of those people who actually voted for this truck in several different press groups to pick it as Truck of the Year. So I selected it as Truck of the Year and the Truck of Texas. So this is it's an award-winning truck, and it's rightfully so an award-winning truck. And hopefully you'll get to see why. So beyond the speedometer issue that I have with it, there is another issue. Let's get to that in a second. Okay, the second issue is in the nav system, actually. And it's not that big of a deal, but you might think it is. I'm going to have to put an address in when I come to a complete stop, so I'll show that to you in a second. Meanwhile, we'll head our way down this hill. And what else can I show you in here? Oh, USB ports. There are 9 USB ports. You'll see these normal ports here, and then we have these smaller ones up there. Those are USB-C ports, which means you have fast charging if you enable them. Okay, here's my problem. If I wanted to enter an address, I can select here, and then the keyboard will come up. And the problem with the keyboard is if I choose something here, like, I don't know, 445, you'll notice that 445 is up there, but my key press isn't registered. When I press space or G, like, I'm not noticing it. So when I'm looking down here, I'm not really looking up here. And we've been messing around with this thing, putting in stupid addresses and stuff, and it doesn't seem to do what my Durango does, which is like auto-select or kind of like narrow down the streets based on what it knows in the database. So anyway, that's a small problem, obviously. It's not the biggest end of the world thing here. But it would be nice if they could change that. We have auto wipers, so I'll turn those on there. And I have the display on driving assistance, so it shows me the yellow line or the orange line there when I'm too close to the edge. And you'll see there's an icon here for lane keeping, so it will automatically steer me to keep me in the lane. And if I do it now, I don't want to trust it yet. There we go, it's doing it again. So it does its best to keep you in the lane, and it's not to replace you as the driver, it's to assist you, which on a windy day is great because it will try and keep you in the lane, and it uses cameras up here above the windshield here, on the windshield at the top, mounted behind the mirror to keep you going. What else do we have? Obviously our vents have flaps on them, so you can control the airflow. We have another charging point up here, and I think that's the only actual 12-volt socket up there. Other charging ports are obviously via USB these days. What else do we have? Sunglasses compartment. And fuel economy, by the way, my average right there, it says 13.3. So I haven't really been working on fuel economy, and this trip isn't going to be about fuel economy. This trip is going to be about just what this thing is capable of as far as a road trip. Just pay attention to the road noise, pay attention to fatigue, which is basically, how hard am I working to keep the truck going straight or at a certain speed on the freeway? Like how easy is this thing to drive? What I will tell you is I had a 30-foot trailer on this thing, and I drove it from almost Corpus Christi all the way back up to Dallas. And usually when you put weight in the back of a truck, the steering lightens up. But here, with a 6,000-pound trailer that was 30 feet long, the steering did not change. So it used the air suspension to self-level, and the previous generation Ram also had an air leveling suspension in the rear, but this is a 4-corner air suspension, so it did an incredible job. Although I did get like 6.5 mpgs on the trip with the trailer on, which I'm not sure if that's good or bad, but again, if fuel economy is your goal, there is a diesel version of this truck called the EcoDiesel, and it's a 6-cylinder diesel, and it produces, I think, more torque than this V8, which is an e-torque V8. You can see there with the auto stop start button right there. That's the giveaway that this is the mild hybrid. The normal Hemi V8 version of this truck doesn't have the stop start. Now, I'm not a fan of engines cutting off at the red light or the stop sign, because to me it's just really annoying and it doesn't really add to the fuel economy. So it really only matters, I guess, if you're in the drive-through line and you're that kind of a person. I don't do drive-throughs that often, so I don't really take advantage of that stop-start system. Anyway, we're pretty close to the fuel station, and what I think I'll do is put some fuel in it. I'm not going to put a full tank because it's 33 gallons and I'm not going that far today. I do know that if you got the EcoDiesel, you could go 1,000 miles on a tank. Here it's 16 miles per gallon, 33 gallons. Even if we round it up to 20, because the highway is 22, you're about 660 on fuel. So the diesel does make a huge difference, and you can tell this V8 has a nice rumble to it. The diesel has more of a diesel sound, like a grainy, refined sound up front. Here you don't hear the engine up front, you just hear the exhaust in the back, so pay attention to that. It's a very nice truck regardless. Let me open the shade here. The shade opens in 2 steps. It closes in 1 step, but opens in 2. Alright, we're going to pull into the fuel station here. Going to get some fuel. Fuel tank is on the left. Yep. I drive so many cars, I just habitually pull into one side or the other. It's pretty funny. There is a clue, though, and there's a bunch of crap down there. That's fine. Okay, so I'll put it in park. Well, the engine shut off, you see that? But when I put it in park, it starts back up. And then it says parking brake automatically engaged. So while I go fuel up, which the price, by the way, is $2.15 a gallon, I'm going to cut to the scene where I was at another gas station where I filled up the tank and drove a massive trailer. So it'll look like I'm giving you an intro, which I guess is appropriate because I haven't given you the intro yet, so we'll cut to that. Okay, you're watching New Car Spin. This is a crazy day. It's really freaking windy, but I've got the 2019 Ram 1500 Limited with the e-torque Hemi. There you go. And yeah, we're checking out the blind spot for the trailer system today. It knows that this is a 30-foot trailer, which is pretty freaky, and it has a 33-gallon tank. You'll notice the fuel price here is pretty cheap here in Texas. And hopefully the wind's not too bad. This press car was provided by Ram, and we decided, hey, we're going to pick up a trailer today and try it out. So if you see this big beast on the road, it's definitely us. So the way the blind spot monitor works is it automatically detects the trailer, and it did it when we made a left turn out of the driveway. And then it's all built into the unit there in the tail light. And we're gonna see. There's an auto mode, but there's also a mode where you can set the max length of the trailer to like 40 feet distance. So basically it's gonna wait till there's 40 feet of clearance behind you so that you can get the ability to change lanes. So we're gonna drive this truck today, see what we can do. Sorry about all the wind. Hopefully this shot comes out. And awesome looking truck though, isn't it? Yeah. Alright, let's have some fun. Let's wait for my friend Tony to come. Tony Bag of Donuts. I'm trying to give you real world results here on YouTube, and I'm not going to tell you to like, I'm not going to tell you to subscribe. Although if you did like and subscribe, I wouldn't mind, but views pay my bills. So if you watch my videos, I have a great video on all the engineering details of the Ram truck from when they sent me to the press launch, and I've got comparison videos too from the truck in auto shows and stuff, and this is my first time driving one and towing with one, so I'll get to explain that to you as we go along today. So thanks for tuning in, and let me know if you have any questions in the comments below. Okay, so the fuel is done. I basically filled up with 19 gallons, so that should get me plenty of leeway into Dallas area. Just want to show you these wheels. These are those optional wheels. They're on Eagle Touring tires, which seem to grip quite well, Goodyears. And I want to show you the tailgate. There's the factory tonneau cover, optional. And this is the tailgate, and it has the double hit to open. And you can see it's a lined bed, which is standard on the Limited. Has LED lights on the inside. And this optional bed you can open like a suicide door style, like a hearse. And you'll notice when it's completely open, the opening of the door clears the wheel well there. And this is that optional step I was talking about. And you'll notice these parking sensors are not into the bumper, they're in the trim below. That was like a design feature from one of my engineering secrets videos. Nice big ass exhaust pipe. Look at that thing, it's huge, just two of them. And of course your trailer and your towing hookup. Blind spot monitor is right here. And the Ram box would go in this section right there, and it would be able to flip up and lock. Start this thing up. Alright, we're on our way to Dallas. What I'm going to do is reset, there we go, the trip computer. I guess it is here, fuel economy. Trip info. Alright, so trip A, we did 321.6 so far. I'm going to reset it now. Boom. Trip B is since 2,053 miles, so that's a different journalist, plus me, plus towing. I'm going to keep it right there. So the 13.3 mpg there is the average from trip B. Oh no, it's trip A. Nope, I don't know what that is. Maybe we just have to start driving. And, yep. Range 400 miles. That gives us plenty of space. And we have a CD slot, by the way. Now, there is no rear entertainment like in my Durango or in the Jeep Grand Cherokee, but you'll see here there's this notch into the cup holders, and that allows you to put an iPad here, and it will stand it up, and obviously you can Bluetooth it to the stereo, which means that you can actually play a movie or something here on your iPad and pipe it through the stereo, and your rear passengers will be entertained for the road trip. They'll also be comfortable, by the way. It is far roomier back there than it is up here because those seats, as you can tell, see the bolster there? So that bolster is further in than it is in the back seat. So you have much more room back there than you do here. But these are okay seats. It smells great in here. There's nothing like a new truck smell, especially a Limited. But there's not much contour going on here. And I would say on a long road trip, you're going to feel it, and especially when you use lumbar, because the lumbar seems to roll out in the center rather than be flat straight across. And these bolsters aren't really thick enough for my taste, so they don't really hold you in as much. But if they had inflatable side bolsters and massage and everything else, that would be great. This is the Limited, so I think that they should make it available in a top-of-the-line truck. But, you know, we'll see if they get there one day. Massage seats, inflating bolsters, kind of make it more supportive. The headrests, by the way, fold forward. They have I want to say hundreds, but 7, 8, so probably about 20 different selections for folding it forward. And yeah, it's great. It's great in here. Sunroof, by the way, if I open it up, goes that far and stops. But if you press it one more time here on the open side, it goes all the way there, and that's it. But I mean, that's great. And if you hit the close button on the shade, what'll happen is the shade will come over, so that'll protect your rear passengers. And then if you hit it again, the sunroof will close, and then the shade will close with it. Of course, I'm getting wet because there's still some water on there. But it's all one step. Boom. And I don't know where my sunglasses are, so I'll probably fiddle around with keeping that open and closed at the same time. Of course, our navigation can be an entire map if we wanted. And we can hit the home button and get a split screen set up. I can close that out and choose comfort if I wanted, like air conditioning, and I can choose Sirius Travel Link if I wanted the weather, and if I wanted to know sports scores and fuel stations and the prices near me. I can sort it by distance or price, which is great. And you can also swap the locations of these cards too. And I like the full map size, and we do have our air conditioning controls here on the side as well, so we don't necessarily need to use the screen to control the aircon. The parking button, on all cars, I think self-parking is a gimmick. I tried it in this truck, and I didn't have the patience for it. But speaking of patience, let's get on the road. I'm going to stop this video, put my seatbelt on, and get back on the freeway, which is right there. We're going to go north towards Dallas. Alright, I'm not going for a speed run or anything, and I'm not really going for record fuel economy. I'm just going to drive this, and I want to give you the kind of like passenger seat experience as if you ride along with me. Hope you enjoy that. If this isn't your thing, well, I'm not going to apologize for that. I'm just going to say I've got plenty of other Ram videos for you to watch if you want details and information. This is like if you are a buyer on the fence, or a Ram fanboy, or anything that is making you want to consider one of these trucks. I hope this helps. I'm not here to be a cheerleader for Ram. I am going to say, though, I did vote for this truck to be the best truck. And it is, for now. I would almost say the diesel's even better, and I'll get to that soon enough. Got the nice leather stitched on the handle too in the Limited, and also in the Laramie Longhorn. The Laramie Longhorn is more of a country theme, which I happen to like more than the Limited. And when we come into this traffic here on the freeway, that's where you're going to see the benefit of radar cruise. Obviously here in Texas we got a lot of trucks, a lot of SUVs. And I think it's not because we love our trucks, it's because out in Texas you got to be able to get over things that aren't paved. And you also get additional safety for when things like animals jump out in front of you on the road, like deer, which there are plenty of, or boar or hog or whatever you want to call them. Those are indestructible. So if you're in a truck, you're elevated above most of that stuff that you're going to be running over, which sounds pretty terrible, but it is important when you're in the middle of nowhere. And this does have a spare tire. I haven't checked it, but I know that it's there. It's under the bed, obviously. Also, as I'm thinking, you can see the tonneau cover there, the factory option, kind of like bouncing around. It is clipped in. There's a safety clip for it too in case it pops up, but I mean, it's not that nice of a cover, actually. I think I'd rather have an exposed bed, but if you needed storage, get a Ram box. That's an option, and I think I prefer that. I've got the nav set up to give me the road signs and things, so it's pretty easy to deal with. I don't have a destination set, and yes, you can see fingerprints. I've been using the crap out of it for the 5 days I've had it. This goes back in 2 more days, so I've already put 1,200 miles on this thing in 4 days. So yeah, I've been earning my seat time in this thing. What else we got? There's an eco mode there, which means it goes into 4-cylinder mode. We're going downhill here, so it's going to shut off 4 cylinders to save fuel. And I don't know how much that works, but if you put it in tow haul mode down there, it disables that function. And then it's kind of like a sport mode because it doesn't change gears until later in the rev range. Not that you wouldn't care. I mean, this thing's got so much power anyway. Speed limit 70 in a construction zone. Gotta love Texas, man. We're going to see downtown in a moment. I'll keep the camera rolling. As far as the stereo, you can see it's an Alpine. You can tell there by the logo, Alpine. And I would say get the Harman Kardon. Get the Ram box, get the Harman Kardon, ditch the tonneau cover over the bed there. And
new text message from Rudy said.
Yeah, and when you get a text message like I just did, it shows up on the screen there. I'm going to hit ignore, and I'm going to hit phone, and then I'm going to hit do not disturb. There we go. Now no one's going to bother me during my drive here. Okay, closing in on downtown Austin. You'll see the center stack here kind of has the display of the Ram logo if you pay attention to it. Around the air vents, the way it wraps around, and then how it wraps over the screen there and then around. It looks just like that. Do you see it? I see it. It's a nice hidden design feature there. I pointed that out to somebody at Ram, and they went, "Holy moly!" Actually, they said something else, and I was like, "Yeah, you guys didn't recognize that?" Very clever of the guy. His signature is in here too. The designer did an Easter egg with his signature somewhere. There are Easter eggs all over the place. There's obviously a Ram logo there in the lower right corner of the windshield too. But he's got something somewhere, and I don't remember where it is. I think it's actually embedded here in the filigree, like his initials or something are in here. If you look carefully, I don't know. It's around here. If you know, put that in the comments below. Where is the signature of the chief designer? I did ride with a designer during the launch of this truck almost 2 years ago. I'm finally driving it. Can you believe that? Thank you, Ram. I'm very patient, yes. Okay, I'm going to let the car do the driving, or the truck do the driving. So we're going to set our cruise. I'm going to choose a speed here. I'm actually going to increase it to 70. There you go. You can see there, 70. And we're doing 51, 52, you can tell by that. And it's going to keep a distance. I can change that distance here. So I'll close that gap. And we'll let it catch up here. There's downtown. So if I'm a little distracted at this point, whether I'm looking to get something out of the glove box or, trying to find a switch or a button for something, or looking in my mirrors all the time, the lane keeping will keep me in the lane, and then the radar cruise will keep me gapped properly from the car in front. It's not replacing me, but it is doing a good job assisting me. Today is a rare day. We're actually going through downtown Austin without stopping on the freeway, and that's because it's a Saturday morning. It's 10:21 this morning. See right there, 10:21. Hotel Van Zant, that's on Rainy Street. Rainy Street is where all the bars are that are bungalows that are now bars. East Side, which everyone says, oh, that's the future. Obviously, by that sneeze, it's not. Let's see, that's the Frost Tower building. That was like the newest building in Austin back in like 2010, and the tallest building at the time. And now it's just another building. There's the state capitol right there. You can see the dome. It's actually bigger than the Capitol building in the United States, District of Columbia. And that's it. We're exiting downtown Austin, closing in on what was the old location for the Austin airport. It's signified by weird-looking satellite dish kind of solar panels, and it's off Airport Road. You want me to mount a camera. Some of you say, oh, don't hold a camera, blah, blah, blah. But honestly, this is no different than holding a cup of coffee. I'm not looking through the camera. I'm just holding the camera aimlessly. I don't even actually know where it's pointing. But I do know that if it was fixed, you'd be bored with the camera angle. That's what you learn in speech class, is that you have to move around on the stage in order to keep the eyes of your audience moving. And obviously you don't hand out anything to your audience before you start your speech, because it distracts and creates noise and things like that. But what I'm trying to do here is give you perspective, what it's like to be in the driver's seat and what it's like to ride in the truck, without boring you to death, especially when this is a 3-hour drive. I'm not sure how long this video will be, but I hope you appreciate it. Here's Airport Road, the exit. And then, I forgot to mention, we did pass the Audi dealer, which I've done all my Audi videos from. Audi of South Austin. Okay, Airport Boulevard, exit. So the airport was around here back in the day. Then they moved it. In and out. That's what a hamburger's all about. Blah, blah, blah. I haven't been there in ages. Okay, I think right here is where the airport used to be. That's what I've been told, by the way. It's this way and it goes back. Some of the hangars are still there. This engine's pretty powerful. You're never really putting your foot down in it. I still have radar on. P. Terry's, those are good burgers. That's actually a very good Austin institution, in my opinion. Great architecture, by the way. So you're never really going through the motions as far as looking for power from this engine. It's really happy to be lazy, and you don't really need to. I don't know. Like in my 300S, I was always looking to go faster and things like that. But here, the way the power is delivered in this Ram, it has power across the rev range, but it really delivers that power best down low. And what that creates is a smoother, quieter experience in the cabin, especially on this kind of road trip aspect. And you can see there too, down in that corner there, it says Aero, and that's the air suspension setting. We are in Aero mode, so it's one level higher than the entry-exit mode. So it's as low as possible in driving mode. I think we also just passed Volvo of Austin. I'm pretty bad here keeping up with direction. So we got Volvo of Austin and Audi of Austin, all of which I've shot my other videos at. Haven't really shot much other vehicles at dealers here because I get press cars. I don't know why Audi has never given me a press car, but I do appreciate the 1.2 million views on the Q8 that I drove. And I do appreciate the dealer giving me the opportunity to drive it. And of course, like, I always appreciate the opportunity to drive these press cars, but it's a little different in my world. Getting a press car is hard. Getting a dealer to let me drive a car for 20 minutes or so is hard. But I have these road trips to do in the press vehicles, and that means I spend more time and more money. And spending more time means I make fewer videos in that span, and spending more money means I need to earn more to kind of offset the cost. So in this case, the fuel to get back and forth to Austin and stuff. And I don't do Patreon or anything like that. I have one just in case someone wants to try and like deep fake you guys. But honestly, I just would appreciate more views on my videos. I got playlists. I have a Ram playlist, an Audi playlist. If you're interested, watch a playlist of my videos, and that would really help out. Because if you're a subscriber, thank you, but subscribers don't pay the bills. Views pay the bills. And I know that. YouTube knows that. And what's 30 seconds? Or even 5 if you skip something? It's not that big of a deal. It's got this guy coming up on me. And then I can move over. That's a cool shot right there. These towing mirrors are pretty cool. The trailer I towed was wider than the truck, so I had to use kind of that little tiny corner there, that, I don't know, magnifying glass mirror thing. I don't know what they call that. That's the second time I've only towed something in my life. So the experience was kind of frightening. Although the steering, like I mentioned before, in the truck here, when I added that big trailer here, the steering didn't change. The ride changed, though, and it was a little hard to get used to, especially with all that crosswind. Looks like we've got some rain coming up. They all have their headlights on, and it's kind of hazy over there. Alright, so I'm going to drink some coffee here. You're going to watch the lane keeping work. So that's an advantage there to having lane keeping, is you can grab your cup of coffee real quick, take a swig, and it's going to keep itself in the middle of the lane, which it did. The Laramie Longhorn, by the way, I don't think has a half wood steering wheel. This thing, when the heated steering wheel was on, the wood look, it's not really wood, I think it's wood looking plastic. I don't know what this is, but it really didn't heat up as quickly as the leather portion. And it heats all the way around, but not quite well enough here, which is another reason why I'd rather have the Laramie Longhorn. There really is no difference between the Limited and the Laramie Longhorn other than the appearance. The Laramie Longhorn has reclaimed barnwood rather than the striped stuff. And both of these upper edition versions have the flocking, which is that felt-looking stuff in there, which is good and bad. I mean, it definitely brings it up a notch, but if you spill your coffee and it goes into there, it's in the flocking, and then you're really screwed. It would be easier to wipe down if it wasn't flocked. Well, I think at this point, I'm going to cut out and probably catch up with you when I get to Waco and give you an idea of what the fuel economy has done since then. I'm not in a rush today. I am going to a chili cook-off at a cigar shop, and yeah, eventually I'll get there. At 64 miles an hour, 70 though, that's kind of frustrating. Also here, if you go to navigation, you get to see the speed limit. You can have the speed limit sign there, and if you go over it, it turns red. That's a typical thing in the FCA products. They do it in the Maseratis, they do it in the Chryslers and the Dodges. Everything with that Uconnect system, which this is. There's also another feature in this Uconnect system. It's called 360L, and it's a new feature. It's a first for Sirius, and this is the first vehicle to feature it. But you get personalized Sirius radio, which means right down here it says for you. So when you're subscribed, you can set up yourself as a driver, and you can have different listeners, and then it will feed in different music for you and tell you when. I mean, I haven't really set this up, so some other demo may have been done here. I don't listen to Dr. Laura, that's for sure. And there was something on here that, Canada's Indigenous Peoples Radio. I really don't care. So obviously, someone else cared, and it fed that into them. So just think about it from that perspective. I don't know who that person was, but it recommends that to them. And Sirius has the largest audio library in the world, apparently. And they just recently bought Pandora, which could be good or bad. I think that if I'm hearing the same music on Sirius and Pandora, I'd kind of go a little crazy. Real quick, before I forget, by the time I get to Waco, I'm sure I'll forget, you'll notice there's a recirc button here. That is not automatic recirc. Let me increase my speed here to 80. There we go. Now I'm over the speed limit, it's red. You see that? So anyway, the automatic recirc doesn't happen. Although if you keep the recirc on, I think it does introduce fresh air into the cabin once in a while. I mention that because sometimes you get behind just a caravan of big rigs, and some of them just output some crazy diesel sooty exhaust, and it's great to have fresh air, but when the system doesn't automatically close off, you end up breathing in that nastiness. And I'm not sure what the cabin filter is or where it's located here, or even if there is one. I think there is. I'm not really smelling all the smells around here, like when you drive by restaurants and stuff, but it is interesting that they didn't do an auto recirc in here. I think they could have done that. Another thing I think Ram could have done, and these aren't really negative points, this is just room for improvement here, is the heated seats. So you could go to apps here and you can have these icons dragged down here. I can only do it when I'm completely stopped for obvious reasons. But if I wanted, like, seasonally my heated seat button to be in this, so I can just hit the heated seat button for the driver, it would be fine. And there it is. I would be able to do that. Just hit that button. However, you'll notice there's this button, and then there's the whole climate comfort setting. And there you'll see there's a low, medium, and high. Weirdly, like, there's more glare on the camera than there is actually in the design. I don't understand why that's happening. Well, that's really what it looks like. If I move my camera here, it looks worse. I don't know why. Anyway, my whole point here is it auto cancels. Turn that back on. If I put the heated seat on high, did I press it? I heard a thing. You can't press the name, you have to press the button. There we go. Now that that's on. It doesn't it doesn't adjust to a lower level, so it stays on high. So you'd be driving for like 20, 30 minutes, and you realize, holy moly, this seat's smoking hot, and it does get really hot. And what you have to do is you have to manually go either to this button or to that button, and then change your setting for your heated seat. But because it's not high or low, it's high, medium, or off, there are more presses you have to make. Not a bad thing, but I'm just saying, if they had made it so that after 10 or 20 minutes it would, bump down a level, it would go from high, and then medium, and then low, and of course it wouldn't go off automatically, unless it was like 30 or 40 minutes, I guess off would be sensible. But I think keeping the heated seat on high, just for the sake of showing that you have 3 levels, it doesn't make sense. I would rather see it change down on its own. What are your thoughts on that? Let's see, it's really hot right now. I'm going to hit that button. This button is easier, so if I move this down here, it would be like high, medium, low, off. And you can tell by the number of little red lines there, that's medium. And if I press it again, you'd see 1, and that's low. And if I press it again, that's off, and then red, 3 red, that's high. So we put it on low. And there you go. So we're still on our way to Waco. There's the fuel economy. There's the traffic. I would be in the right lane, but I get idiots like this, little Klingons. So I'm just going to move over on them, because I got to move over anyway. I don't understand people who have to sit in blind spots. Alright, it moves pretty good. Top speed, I think, is 103. Yep. As you can tell, it moves pretty good. Part of the test here. It's very stable. No issues at all. So if you really were on a open road like this, where everyone's kind of doing this kind of speed, well, you just do it. This is kind of the best part about Texas. And again, why a lot of people in Texas have these trucks is because if an animal darts out, you're kind of you're not going to be able to avoid it pretty much at these speeds on toll roads and stuff, but you will be above the animal as far as like a deer or a little pig or something. On a side note, I was in my neighborhood in Dallas, and I had 2 squirrels darting around, and instinctively I hit the brakes. You're not supposed to hit the brakes because they're actually timing your path. So I did hit the brakes, and I looked in my mirror and I saw that I did get a squirrel. He was kind of flopping around. This might be a little graphic for you, but he was flopping around. So the other one made it, and I kind of felt really bad. But then I realized with this air suspension and these tires, I didn't even feel it. So it's a pretty smooth ride, to be honest. I really commend that squirrel, though, for the effort. But he won't have the guts to do it again. Bad joke. That's a terrible story. Thank God it wasn't true. All right, on our way to Waco. Heavier traffic than normal because it is a weekend before Christmas, and hope we make it uneventfully. Is that even a way to say it? I don't know. That's what happens when you have no one else in the vehicle and 4 shots of espresso in your homemade drink in a Starbucks cup. So, yep, working on it. What is that? It's kind of cool looking. I'm not into really old cars, but that's a pretty badass looking old car. Alright, we're on I-35 North, but what we're coming up on is I-35 West and I-35 East, although it's both north and south, if that makes any sense. So my friend from Nashville is like, what the heck? But, no, it's pretty simple. There's 2 I-35s. There's one that heads east towards Fort Worth, and there's one that heads east towards Dallas and west towards Fort Worth. And they just branch off right here, and that's it. So you're on I-35 either way. It's just that you either go one part of DFW or the other. Since I'm going to Dallas, I go this way. But if I was to go to the Texas Motor Speedway, I think I'd go that way. Or Fort Worth. Fort Worth doesn't really do it for me. So yeah, here we are. And it's 2 lanes here, so it's basically not as convenient as the 3 lanes before. This is where it gets the most challenging because obviously lane discipline is important. This is just about like your typical like Interstate 77 or I-81 in Virginia. These trucks are using it, and these people look at that, are all clustered up there and braking. It's just like, move over and let people pass. The trucks obviously are limited to 70 miles an hour, so when they do this, it's really annoying. It's like the truck in front, or on the right lane, it's not going to slow down, and the guy on the left can't go any faster. So what we end up doing is sitting here, beating off to ourselves for miles on end, because that guy wants to get in front of that truck, and it's like that Austin Powers steamroller moment. And then of course another Subaru. Like, everyone wants to move over to be next in line. I'd rather let all that crap pass, and then I can pass everybody else. So this will take like 5 miles. But in Interstate 81 in my personal car, everyone would be in the left, and there'd be one guy in the left lane who like wouldn't pass the truck. And I do this kamikaze bonsai thing. I come in on the right lane, and then I cut left in front of the slowest person in the far left lane. And that's something I used to perfect in Virginia. But of course I do that in my personal cars and in Virginia, because that's a special place for that. Here, we just gotta mosey on through here. Get around everybody. At one point it opens up to 3 lanes, and then that's it. But I don't know why I'm explaining all this. It's not really anything about the Ram 1500, which I'm enjoying thoroughly, to the point where there's nothing else to talk about other than the way people are driving, if that makes any sense. I have no complaints about this truck. We talked about the heated seat button and the navigation entry and the font in that speedometer. I can't even see what speed that is from here. What else we got? Contour of the seats. And this nut job wants to move over again. That's why I told you this would take 5 miles. That brings me upon a good point here. When I'm on these roads and I pass somebody, I'll do the speed limit, but then I floor it, and I kick it down, and I go, and I come back in, and I just let my foot off the gas, and I just let it coast back down to the speed limit. The thing is, like, you've got this blind spot detection here, and it's on, and then if I was to signal, as you see it's on, now it's off. If I was to signal, it would beep at me. But if I was to pass people faster than the speed limit, Like if I was to go 20 miles an hour faster than them, the blind spot thing never turns on. And that's because I'm passing people fast enough, quickly enough, to just get out, go, and get back in. And maybe I can demonstrate that, maybe I can't. He'll move over. Okay, so here we go. Thank you, sir. Alright, let's just say I was passing. Well, I'm not going to move over now. Scan the horizon. Make sure you look out for the authorities. Alright, let's say I was passing this cluster of cars. Ugh, don't you dare. Frickin' Subaru driver. Another frickin' Subaru driver. Okay, so if I signal now, even though someone's in my spot, it doesn't go off because I'm going way faster than the blind spot would know I'm moving in at. If I was to go 80 and they're doing 73, I want to pass. I'm not passing quickly enough is my point. So this blind spot system is actually pretty smart, and I've got it set up to beep. You can disable that. You can just have the light on, in the mirror or whatever. But the reality is, like, you want to have the ability to keep your safety systems on, but you want to use them properly. So I feel like using the systems properly is like in this case, let's just say he's doing 75, which we're going to do. All right. And then if I wanted to pass this guy, he would move over, and then I would open it up, right? So it's clear, we move over, and then I would signal right, and then you notice the blind spot doesn't go off. We got tire shredder stuff here. Another tire. So this is why I've seen tires explode off trucks, and I've seen someone hit a tire and have it flip up and then hit a front of a Corvette. I've seen nasty stuff in like the cluster of traffic. And so if you were all tailgating, none of you would see the debris on the road, and all it takes is one person to change a lane, and that stuff starts flying around. People start moving and freaking out because they don't want to hit that stuff, which is understandable. But then that's how you get terrible accidents. Look at all the people in the rearview mirror. I don't know, maybe you can see it there. Look at how they're all just screwed back there. They're in both lanes, no one's really passing. Meanwhile here, there's pretty much lane discipline. And there's the Subaru, of course, sitting in the left lane for no reason. Well, you know what they say, I'd rather be coming than stroking. Look at that thing. Oh, that's great. Cummins turbo diesel. King Cab something? I don't know. I mean, I'm not a truck guy, but that's pretty impressive. I don't know what a truck that size means. But in the mirror, I mean, if you saw that coming up, I think you'd think Mad Max, I guess. Good stuff. So this whole trip here reminds me of why I didn't keep my Audi A3, and that's because on my drives to Dallas for work, I had a hard time in the A3 keeping up or passing trucks like this. These big V8-powered American pickups are formidable opponents. They are the foes of the highway when you have an Audi. And a four-cylinder Audi just cannot do it. And I got disappointed in those Turbo 4s because they just weren't giving me the performance on the highway. Sure, on the city streets and with Quattro and all that, it was great, but not like this. Not to cross Texas. But that kind of brings me to my point. Like, I have a Durango RT, and if I was to ever replace it with a car, it would be one of two cars. It would probably be the Volvo S60 T8, which I know is a turbocharged, supercharged four-cylinder, but it also has an electric motor and 400 horsepower and 475 pound-feet of torque, which seems pretty alluring. You know, it seems like, oh, it's got way more power than an Audi S4. I think that's worth it. So I might do a Volvo S60 T8. I also thought, an Infiniti Q50 Red Sport, which also has 400 horsepower, but a V6 twin turbo, might be a better fit. So what's your opinion? Would you say, hey, a 4-cylinder electrified future version of a car, which is what Volvo is totally on game for and spearheading, and I think doing it right, is the way to go? Or would you say, nah, stick with the Infiniti, Japanese reliability, blah, 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 V6 for the win? I don't know. If this guy's not going to move over, I'm going to move over. Yeah, that's what I thought, buddy. Out of my way. Alright, I had to tow a trailer through this part of the freeway, and I gotta say, with a 30-foot trailer and 6,000 pounds of crosswind, this section here, I wasn't nervous at all in the Ram. This thing was so solid through this, and honestly, people around me were nervous. They definitely kept their distance, and I'm not sure why. It's probably because they saw this thing coming up on them, towing an Airstream, and they went, holy smokes, let's get away from that. I don't know. In any there's a nice Ram. There's a lot of Ram trucks out, a lot of diesels and stuff. It is the way. This is a very comfortable ride. The air suspension smooths out everything. We're still in aero mode. It goes into normal mode when you come to a stop. So when you get off the freeway and stuff, it goes back into normal. Here on the freeway, though, it's not really helping with my driving style as far as fuel economy. 15 mpgs. Not spectacular, but not terrible. Let's move over. Anyway, we're pretty close to Dallas now. Exit 401. Yeah, so we're like 30 miles. And I'll catch up with you to give you an idea of what Dallas looks like compared to Austin. I spent some time in London recently, and those diesel vehicles are everywhere, and I found that when you cross the street, you better cross the street before the crosswalk turns red, because once that crosswalk is red and their light's green, they're coming for you, because those diesels, man, they get off the line. In the city, you got to go 20, 30 miles an hour. They're definitely in your face by the time the crosswalk is red for at least 2 seconds, so you got to be quick. And they don't mess around in London, with the way they drive. They're all real close together, and they basically manage to drive in a way where 8 cars can get through at a time. And especially when you go back to Austin, like, people are gonna put their phone down, and then they don't really put it in gear. I guess, like, maybe they gotta let their car start if it's a auto stop start. It's a little different. In the U.S., people are much slower, and it makes no sense at all here in the U.S. as far as the way people are. But speaking of the stop-start system, which is what I wanted to segue into here, the way that works is there's an alternator starter hooked up via a belt pulley on the front of the engine, not in the bell housing, but the front of the engine, and that alternator starter actually charges and starts 48-volt mild hybrid system. And so when your foot's on the brake and the engine shuts off, all the auxiliary stuff is still running. When you take your foot off the brake, that alternator starter whirs up, and you hear like the exhaust, and it just kind of rumbles, just boom, real quick. Not a typical start sound from a cold start, but it turns the engine on that quick. That's the way I'm going to describe it, that sound. And that alternator starter also propels enough power. I think it's 110 pound-feet of torque. It sends enough power to the engine to not only start it, but move the engine and the transmission in a way where the car can move forward. So there's no delay between starting and moving forward. So in stop-and-go traffic, that delay, that half-second delay that some of these cars have with the automatics to like start the engine and then go in gear, the Ram e-torque system, just like on the Jeep Wrangler 4-cylinder e-torque system, when it starts, you're already able to move forward because your foot's off the brake. So it's a seamless transition And that's the future. That electrification style future is definitely coming, and it'll get even more momentum, pun intended, uh, as we go. But I don't want to go demonstrate all this in the city because it's just a waste of our time. I'll just explain to you that it's a seamless, very smooth, very subtle, unnoticeable transition. And you can disable it like I did here when I was in Waco, so I'll put that back on. Obviously, it does nothing now until we're in stop-and-go traffic, but the engine will go to zero, everything still runs, air conditioning works, and of course certain parameters, it won't always do it, like when your cold starts or if it's 100 degrees outside and you got the AC blasting, it's not going to do that. And I think too, if your wheel is turned a little bit, like if you're going to make a left turn or something, it's not going to shut the engine off because you need that instant acceleration to cross an intersection, for instance. So it's really when you're in a red light going straight or in a drive-through that this system really helps out saving fuel. But it's not as bad as the systems from 5-10 years ago, even 3 years ago. There are many advancements these days, and Ram was the first to bring a mild hybrid V8 to the United States. Audi is the second. So Audi brought it in their 6-cylinder cars. Ram brought it first with a V8 in the Ram truck. That's this one. Part of why it won all these awards because it's so groundbreaking. There is an Audi V8 version now in the A8 or the S8 as they call it, which has the e-torque system, but Ram was the first to bring it to the United States. And there are 6-cylinder and 4-cylinder versions of it in other vehicles, but I'm just telling you, FCA beat Audi to the game as far as tech. So think about that when you're making your truck purchase decision. The whole FCA umbrella was able to beat the Germans in their own game. Because stop-start is really a German thing. Americans and Japanese don't really do that. It's coming more, but I'd rather surpass this completely and get that Volvo S60, which is a hybridized version of it, but more of a performance hybrid. Because I think performance hybrids will do better than efficiency hybrids. Okay, this idiot has been sitting in the left lane for far too long. In your Golf, which is now extinct because there's another generation of it. I hate passing on the right, but I don't have a choice. We'll move over. All right. So, of course, you've got the red line there, which is the traffic display from Sirius. It's a satellite traffic system, and I don't know why my autofocus isn't working. Autofocus is broken. Sometimes that traffic situation displayed is true, and other times it is completely false. And I think maybe Sirius satellite traffic is trying to be predictive. I know there's a cellular-based version too. Oh, everyone's breaking up there. Is it true? Is it really? No, it's not red here. No way it can be red here. Yeah, I don't see it as red. Alright, I'll catch up with you downtown. Well, if you can't tell, Texas is like a native word of something for under construction, because I've been through a lot of construction zone today. This is Dallas. That round globy thing over there is Reunion Tower. And there's a restaurant up there. I guess it's Wolfgang Puck's. This is a pretty cool place to visit. Downtown is to the right there. Uptown is the newer stuff about left of the middle. Anyway, fuel economy is 15.2, 202 miles in 3 hours, basically. So it's right on course. I gotta move over. Gotta move over one more. Downtown looks, or I call this whole area downtown. Dallas has a really nice skyline at night. The Omni Hotel there is also where the convention center is, and it lights up like a light show at night. It's really cool. And so does the Reunion Tower. Everything here lights up. It's pretty swank. I think we're about to watch a car accident happen with the way this suburban guy is going, or the Yukon, whatever. Yeah. The Ram. I'm not fatigued. I'm not tired. I'm not sore. 3 hours behind the wheel has been a complete pleasure. This thing is a beast, and it's a great truck. Gets a lot of looks, and people definitely move out of the way. This is not a small truck. It's a large truck, but the interior is a nice place to be, and the ride is superb. So you'll notice, too, we slowed down here. It says normal ride height achieved. We just missed it, but the message is there. But the the indicator saying normal is the ride height. And you can also see it here, too. Ride height. This icon here. And it has, if you press up, it goes to off-road 1. If you press it again, it goes to off-road 2. And it will stay in that mode when you park it, which is obviously good for off-roading because you don't want it to lower down onto obstacles. I'm trying to think about what else I can explain here. This truck's been great. Fuel economy is basically on par with the diesel Denali. I think that got 17.1 as a diesel, so I was going much faster in this truck, as you noticed. But I just wanted to show you the capabilities of it. It's so solid, no noise, wind noise, or very, very subdued. And then the exhaust is all I pretty much hear. I don't really hear anything from the engine. And yeah, there you go. So thank you for watching. This is the conclusion of the Ram 1500 Limited. A very nice truck. I would suggest get the Ram box, get the locking rear diff, and skip the tonneau cover there. I would say you're onto a pretty cool truck. And then, of course, you can get the standard e-torque V6 or the Hemi V8 or the Hemi V8 e-torque and the diesel. So stay tuned for the diesel. I'll be driving that soon. And of course, I do have other videos of the Ram from their events, and it's more technical, and it's with engineers, and it's at their events, which gives you more information that you probably wouldn't expect. And I'm just going to close out this video with the drive through the tunnel. Whoa, I'm going to move over here. Jesus. Stopping on a freeway is not a good idea.